Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. My reading week has been decidedly mixed. I started the reading week with You Never Forget Your First, a biography of George Washington by Alexis Coe. Now, there are two things that I need to address before I talk about You Never Forget Your First. First is that last Friday there was a storm uh, that passed through my area of Texas. It's spring in Texas, and that is always the rainy season. And the storm last Friday was rather energetic, and it was decidedly tornadic, although it did not cause as much damage as all indications for that storm indicated it should have. It was pretty. As the meteorologist said, it's like it was the most, like, the rotation was the most violent he'd seen. That wasn't like you could see the tornado forming. And so for about 2 hours, me and my mom were watching the live coverage of the storm, and that delayed the beginning of the book. Like, I started the book a bit later. Although, given that it's like barely over 200 pages, I could have not read anything on Friday and just finished it on Saturday. Not that was going to happen, but anyway. And the second is that I guess at best, I'm apathetic or ambivalent towards the American Revolution and the founding and the founders. It's not an area of history that I'm particularly all that interested in. If I did have a book, it would probably be just one or a few. And I guess that sort of I don't know if that really affected my reading or not, but I bailed on You Never Forget Your First. I thought the introduction was bad. I mean, one of the worst introductions I've ever read. Now, I understand Alexis Coe is trying to argue for why you should read her book. George Washington is well-trod ground, and you kind of need something special, a new take, or something to separate yourself from the crowd. And while the fact that she is the first woman to write a biography of George Washington in a long time is one selling point, she also attacked a number of previous biographers of George Washington, calling them thymen, men who are obsessed with or excessively interested in sort of the masculine representations of George Washington or something. It's like, I really did not understand that introduction at all. Unless she was like selling it to a particular readership, which is entirely possible and entirely fair, but it just didn't work for me. And then the actual biography itself, I just thought it wasn't very good. It was lackluster. And there were points where I'm like, okay, are you referring to, or is George being referred to here, or Lawrence being referred to here? It's like, so I ultimately did decide to bail on this book, which is a shame because I did get it as a birthday present. maybe I should have gotten something by Frank DeCotter or something else. Or maybe now that I think about it, maybe I should have gone to the manga section of Barnes & Noble. But anyway, so that did free me up to finish April with some poetry. So on Saturday, I reread for the first time in a year A Little More Written on the Human by Gillian Conoley. Of course, these next books I've already talked about in my poetry wrap-up, but I'll talk about them again here too. So this is my second reread of A Little More Written on the Human. So the first time I read it, shortly after I bought it, I liked the collection, but it wasn't. I wasn't entirely happy with it. The second reread, or the first reread from last year, I really enjoyed the book. It rose in my estimation, and this third reading, I still like it quite a bit, better than the first time. I like the vast majority of the poems in this collection, but I didn't exactly love it as I was hoping I would, and that is, I think, for the most part, a sort of a trend for me in poetry this year, is that I'm enjoying the reading, but I'm not exactly loving it. And maybe that's because, there's the third reading of this, and so it's like I'm rereading most of what I've got. Anyway, so then on Sunday, I reread The River Twice by Kathleen Graeber, and I didn't like it. I don't think I liked it the first time I read it, and it just, some of the poems were okay, but for the most part, it did nothing for me. Although I don't particularly, it's like, as poetry doesn't really engage my emotions, or I don't read poetry emotionally. It's more intellectual for me. Not that but anyway. I don't quite know what I'm trying to say. But anyway, so then I reread Tanto by Marina Carreira, and I really enjoyed this reread. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first time I read it, but Marina Carreira is still a fantastic poet. So that brings me to May 1st. Now, my reading this week was going to be disrupted one way or another because my mom did have a doctor's appointment on Tuesday, and after that appointment wrapped up, we were going to go over to my brother's, so I wasn't going to get any reading done, and I didn't. Which is, I guess, all well and good, because I did ultimately bail on Tomb of Sand by Geetanjali Shree, translated by Daisy Rockwell. No, Rockwell. I don't know why I keep saying Rockwell. This is not Full Metal Alchemist here. Then again, I think I'm probably going to do a rereading of Full Metal Alchemist at some point in the future. But anyway. So I started this on Monday, and I bailed on it on Monday. So I don't know why I thought, unless there's something later in the book that deals with the partition, I don't know why I'm insisting this book is in some way, shape, or form about the partition of India and Pakistan. This novel, at least as far as I know of, or at least as far as I got, is about a widow who has spent a significant, worrying amount of time after the death of her husband in a catatonic, depressed state. And gradually she comes back to life, she comes back to the world, and this new Ma is a bit more progressive. Progressive to the sense that her normally more progressive daughter is a bit concerned. So what happened, because I did mention a few times that this book was on my 12 TBR, and when I decided to wrap it up by doing a massive trade chapter tag that this was the only book that I was remotely interested in continuing with. Well, I think what happened was the prose of the first chapter was enough to get me to continue on. But the more I read, the more the prose just didn't do enough to hook me without the other aspects of storytelling. And the prose, or at least as far as I read into Tomb of Sand, it was incredibly beautiful. But the characters, did not grab me. Now, admittedly, this is well over a 700-page book, so at some point the characters probably will be more fully developed. And the plot, again, well over 700 pages, it will have time to develop. But waiting for that development means that the beauty of that something else has to hook me. And ultimately, I'm not a reader that is all that attracted to just beautiful prose. I need character, I need plot to really fully hook me. And so ultimately, as I was reading this, I struggled to not want to come back in here and go take a nap. So, yeah. Now, obviously, I did not read anything on Tuesday because my mom had a doctor's appointment. So, on Wednesday, I read 2 volumes of manga that I just hauled that Monday. Although they are both late April releases. So first I read Eden Zero, Volume 22 by Hiro Mashima. Eden Zero is one of my favorite manga series. It's by the author of Fairy Tail, which, yes, it is still from the creator of Fairy Tail. Anyway, so Eden Zero is a science fantasy story about a young man named Shiki Granbell who has been raised on a planet, a tourist planet populated by androids. One day, a young woman named Rebecca and her Exceed companion Happy come to the planet to film videos for their B-Cube channel. The androids on the planet beginning to shut down due to lack of power and maintenance, seemingly malfunction and attempt to kill Rebecca and Happy. Shiki rescues them and evacuates the planet with Rebecca and Happy. The trio then form a team and they go on adventures seeking the gigantic cosmic goddess figure known as Mother. During the course of their adventures, they come upon an abandoned starship called Eden Zero and slowly build a crew, including Weiss, Homura, the 4 Shining Stars, Witch, Sister, Hermit, and a slew of other characters, many of whom have been former enemies. Jen and Clean, Laguna, and some interesting characters like Couchpo. And so the crew have adventures, and gradually Shiki's adoptive grandfather, Ziggy, returns, and he's returned with an anti-human agenda, or anti-biological life agenda. So the crew attempt to stop Ziggy from eradicating all organic life. And so by the point in Volume 22, they've tracked Ziggy to the planet Lindard, and in an alliance with Elsie of the Oresienses Galactica, loose grouping of interstellar outlaws, and the Oresian Seis Interstellar operative Holy, they've come together to fight Ziggy on Lindard. Ziggy is allied to two other members of the Oresian Seis Galactica, Did and Crow and God Eknoella, the mother of dragons. So this volume largely sort of starts the fights. Previously Ziggy has defeated Elsie, and she's been rescued, kidnapped, arrested by Justice, one of the Oresian Seis Interstellar, who are basically the legitimate opposite to the Oresian Seis Galactica, who serve the Interstellar Union Army. Meanwhile, Shiki, Rebecca, Pino, Happy, Weiss, and Homura have gone to confront Ziggy, and they are confronted by the four Dark Stars, the android opposites of the four Shining Stars. Shiki fights Wizard in an amazing fight. Rebecca fights Clown in a really great fight too. Weiss takes on Killer in a pretty good fight too. And Homura fights Brigantine in a fight that's still going on as the volume ends. Meanwhile, the Eden Zero, Holy, and Laguna, Jin and Clean are fighting Dead and Crow, while the Elsie's fleet, Holy's fleet, and eventually the rest of the Oresian Seis Interstellar's combined fleets engage the swarm of dragons surrounding Lindard. So this is going to be a massive war arc. And I enjoyed this volume immensely. I love the fight. I love the setup, the art, the characters, the hints of what's coming. It was just amazing. Let me see if I can get you some really good images. Oh yeah, like there. And also liked a lot of the character development that Shiki goes through, because not only does he sort of like the physical fighting, but he also shows some really interesting intellectual like planning and sort of escape that happens. I quite enjoyed that as well. Let me see here. Oh yeah. So yeah, I'm like, I finished this volume and I'm like, I want volume 23. I want it now. And it's going to take a few more months. So yeah. So I really enjoyed this volume. And I also enjoyed the second manga I read. And this is the first volume. This is Demons of the Shadow Realm by Hiromu Arakawa. Hiromu Arakawa is most famous for Full Metal Alchemist, one of my favorite manga of all time. Demons of the Shadow Realm is her new series that started about a year ago and is now getting a English release. So Demons of the Shadow Realm is set in contemporary Japan, in a hidden village, separated, basically hidden and still very much like centuries past, with no regular contact with the outside world. There are two twins, Yuru and Asa, who have magical significance for the village. Yuru is allowed to wander freely, to hunt, and to be fully integrated within the community, while his sister Asa is kept imprisoned in the keep of the castle. One day, the barrier protecting the village from the outside world is breached, and the village is invaded by what appeared to be a military force. Leading that military force are two young women, one of whom is a little girl or teen, I'm not entirely sure what her age is, accompanied by basically two teeth, or like an upper and lower jaw that she uses for offensive purposes, and a woman who looks very much like Asa and is revealed to be the real Asa, who managed to escape the village years before, who's come back to not only capture her brother, but also to gain revenge for the village's abuse of her. The attack is repulsed, but in order to prevent them a second attack from coming, Yuru is sent out of the village, and he's taken by one of the few people who do regularly leave and come back. And so he is taken to modern Japan. But he doesn't go alone because he brings two demons of his own, right and left, who serve as his guardians. And so he has to figure out what's going on. Who is this woman who claims to be his sister? What happened to his parents, if she is his sister, which she is, and what exactly is going on? Why do these people want him and his sister? And it's amazing. I love this volume. It was phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal. I'm seriously contemplating going ahead and pre-ordering volumes 2 and 3. I liked them that much. The artwork is fairly standard for Hiromu Arakawa's work. If you look at Yuru here on the cover, he fairly resembles a male Riza Hawkeye, which is cool. I do love her work. Let me see here. I can show you some pictures. There's that. And I like the humor. The sort of seeing basically somebody who's sort of experiencing culture shock, which was really interesting as well. So there's that. Let me show you a picture of left and right. That's really cool too. So yeah, I love this, and I'm really looking forward to reading more of Demons of the Shadow Realm. So that leads me to what I read yesterday and today, and that was China's Cosmopolitan Empire, the Tang Dynasty by Mark Edward Lewis. So this is a reread. I read this 6-7 years ago, maybe longer than that. And I remember quite liking it. Although this reread, yeah. It's basically a study of the Tang Dynasty in less than 300 pages. And it's fairly academic, so it's dry, it's not terribly narrative, and I'm not enjoying it as much as I had hoped I would. But it does give me an insight into what I want, which is I want a big narrative history of China or of specific dynasties, is what I would love to have. And maybe one day I will find them. So until then, China's Cosmopolitan Empire will stick around. But I am planning on, I think as of right now, I am planning to continue with this book. Although today's reading, I'm not sure. So don't be surprised if I do decide to bail on this, although I don't really have all that much left. I mean, again, it's not terribly long, but yeah, we shall see. So don't be surprised if I do end up bailing on it, which probably puts my reading plans for next week in some controversy. Because I was thinking of continuing with a Chinese history by reading The Troubled Empire, China and the Yuan and Ming Dynasties by Timothy Brook, which I just picked up last month. And also The Mongol Storm, Making and Breaking Empires in the Medieval Near East by Nicholas Morton. And so these three books are all part of my Historathon readings for this month. And although, again, there is a bit of an issue with my reading this coming reading week because my mom has a doctor's appointment on Tuesday. She basically had to go in last Tuesday for lab work. And this week it's to see a doctor or one of her doctors and to get a shot. But anyway, so again, I was thinking maybe if I could probably get The Troubled Empire in, and then maybe not read anything on Tuesday and then pick back up on Wednesday. But depending how things go tomorrow with China's Cosmopolitan Empire, I may have to reassess my reading plans for next week. And I think maybe I might get to Uncharted Seas by Dennis Wheatley. This is a adventure novel about a lost island in the Sargasso Sea or something similar to it. Or I might just decide to read a whole bunch of manga. And I'm definitely seriously contemplating doing Naruto again by Masashi Kishimoto. So anyway, I will report back with what happens next Friday. So as far as videos are concerned, I don't know if there's anything I have specifically planned for Monday. Tuesday, I guess I could do a tag on Monday because I won't be doing a video on Tuesday because obviously that's when my mom's appointment is. So go ahead and try to get her ready during when I normally film. And then Wednesday and Thursday, I guess if I do videos, it'll be whatever strikes my fancy or more tag videos because there are some tags that have come up in the last few days and weeks that I would like to get to that I haven't gotten to. And of course on Friday, weekly reads. And hopefully I will be able to report at some point that I have donated some books to the Friends of the Library. So far that hasn't happened yet, but yeah. And all the while, my library continues to grow. I'm currently almost at 420 books. Anyway, so any booktube, that's all I got for this week. This weekly reads has gone on a little too long, so I'm going to go ahead and sign up for now. So Thank you, BookTube. Have a great rest of your evening and weekend. Until I see you again on Monday, stay safe.